Ava Carter arrived at 42, Harrow Star Lane with a heart full of hope and a mind buzzing with dreams of suburban bliss. The pristine, tree-lined street and the promise of a friendly, orderly neighborhood painted a picture of the life she had always wanted. As she stepped into her new home, every detail, from the freshly painted walls to the meticulously landscaped front yard, whispered the start of a new chapter, a clean slate free from past burdens. In those first days, Ava immersed herself in the excitement of settling into a community where neighbors were expected to be supportive and warm. She envisioned quiet evenings, cheerful block parties, and shared smiles with those who lived just a few steps away. However, it wasn't long before the serene facade of suburban life began to crack. Across the street, at 43, Harrow Star Lane, lived Malik Thompson, a successful black man whose accomplishments and refined demeanor quickly made him a prominent figure in the community. To many, Malik embodied the promise of success and hard work. Yet for reasons Ava struggled to understand, his presence ignited a surge of resentment deep within her. Perhaps it was his ease, his confidence, or the subtle reminder that success could flourish right before her eyes. Whatever the cause, Ava found herself grappling with feelings she had never expected. Every time she caught a glimpse of Malik's well-maintained car or the sight of him engaging warmly with other neighbors, a bitter tension welled up inside her. Instead of celebrating the vibrant tapestry of the community, Ava's thoughts turned inward, darkened by envy and a deep-seated bitterness. The more she tried to embrace the new life that lay ahead, the more she was haunted by an inexplicable hostility toward the man who seemed to have everything together. Ava's inner conflict grew as she questioned her own worth and place within the community. Was her discontent a personal failing or a mirror reflecting the complex dynamics of a neighborhood that, beneath its polished exterior, was riddled with unspoken hierarchies and implicit biases? Every interaction with Malik, whether it was a brief nod on the sidewalk or a friendly wave at a local gathering, stirred conflicting emotions. On one hand, Malik represented a beacon of success and stability, on the other, his very existence challenged Ava's preconceived notions about who truly belonged in this idyllic suburban setting. The tension in Ava's heart was palpable. The excitement of moving into a new home was gradually overshadowed by the resentment that began to cloud her days. Instead of the anticipated sense of belonging, she was left questioning her own acceptance in a community where differences, both visible and unspoken, could ignite fierce internal battles. In that initial period, as Ava unpacked boxes and arranged her belongings, she couldn't shake the growing animosity that surfaced with each passing day. The promise of a fresh start was marred by the realization that beneath the neat lawns and tidy sidewalks, personal insecurities and societal prejudices could fester unchecked. And so, the stage was set, not only for a new suburban life but also for an internal struggle that would define her experience at 42, Harrow Star Lane. Below is the complete expanded narrative divided into 10 parts. All character names and key nouns have been changed consistently, with HOA left unchanged, so that the story now follows Ava Carter and Malik Thompson at 42 and 43, Harrow Star Lane, respectively. After settling into her new home at 42, Harrow Star Lane, Ava Carter's initial excitement began to sour under the weight of simmering resentment toward her neighbor, Malik Thompson. Malik, who lived just across the street at 43, Harrow Star Lane, was the picture of success, a confident, accomplished man who seemed to embody everything Ava felt she lacked. That stark contrast fanned a dangerous flame inside her until, one chilly morning, her dark emotions found expression in an impulsive act. While retrieving her mail from the community mailbox, Ava's eyes caught sight of a package addressed not to her but to Malik. The package, wrapped in plain brown paper and stamped clearly with his name, was intended for the very man whose success stirred envy in her heart. In that split second, Ava's mind twisted the situation. She convinced herself that Malik's seemingly effortless lifestyle was an affront, and that by taking this package, she could reclaim some semblance of power. Without hesitation, she slipped the package into her bag. Inside, she would later discover expensive noise-canceling headphones, a luxury item that Malik would undoubtedly cherish. For Ava, this theft was not a crime but a small act of rebellion, a symbolic strike against a world that, in her eyes, favored those like Malik over someone like herself. She rationalized that if Malik could enjoy the best of everything, perhaps she, too, was entitled to take a piece of that privilege. Every step back to her modest house was punctuated by a racing heartbeat and a mind buzzing with conflicting emotions. Part exhilaration, part guilt, the act felt simultaneously daring and dangerous. In her internal monologue, Ava painted the theft as an act of justice against a system that had long overlooked her worth. The stolen package, she convinced herself, wasn't just about the headphones, it was about righting an imbalance in a neighborhood that prized outward success. Yet, even as she locked the door behind her, a quiet voice of caution whispered doubts. The act, trivial as it might have seemed in her mind, was a breach of trust. But the allure of rebellion was too potent. She buried the guilt beneath layers of self-justification. Ava told herself that no one would notice the small loss and that Malik's busy life would render the theft insignificant. Thus, as the morning faded, the package remained hidden, a secret trophy of Ava's first bold step into a dangerous game. Little did she realize that this small act of defiance would mark the beginning of a series of actions that would soon upend the quiet order of Harrow Star Lane and set her on a collision course with consequences far beyond what she could imagine. Emboldened by the rush of her initial act, Ava Carter soon found herself unable to resist the temptation to repeat the deed. The thrill of seizing Malik Thompson's package had awakened a dangerous compulsion within her. In the days that followed, as new parcels arrived at Malik's address, Ava's eyes would wander to the neatly arranged deliveries with a mix of envy and anticipation. At first, she pilfered small items. Designer socks here, a few ornamental trinkets there, rationalizing each theft as an insignificant gesture against an oppressive status quo. In Ava's warped perspective, every package that disappeared was a tiny act of defiance, a way to chip away at the seemingly untouchable success that Malik embodied. She clung to the belief that Malik, with his busy schedule and polished reputation, wouldn't notice a few missing items here and there. But as the days turned into weeks, Ava's actions grew bolder. She began targeting higher-value items. The thefts escalated from accessories to more substantial packages, each one a carefully chosen symbol of the luxury and ease that Malik enjoyed. With every stolen package, her internal justifications grew more elaborate. In her mind, she was not committing petty theft, she was redistributing wealth, a vigilante act in a world that had left her marginalized. The act of stealing became intoxicating. Ava meticulously planned her moves, ensuring she could snatch the package without being seen. Every successful theft fed her burgeoning sense of power and control, even as it deepened the moral chasm within her. The expensive noise-canceling headphones had been only the beginning. Soon, the allure of further rebellion pushed her to risk more with each new delivery. Yet, beneath the adrenaline rush lay an undercurrent of unease. Ava began to question the true cost of her actions. Each time she opened her door to hide another package, a small voice reminded her that she was crossing an invisible line, a line that, once blurred, could never be restored. But that voice was drowned out by the feverish excitement of her rebellion, and with each theft, Ava's behavior became more brazen and systematic. In the quiet moments of the night, as she reviewed her secret stash of pilfered items, Ava could not help but marvel at the audacity of what she had done. The items themselves, each a symbol of Malik's presumed privilege, became trophies of her defiance. Yet, with every trophy added, the risk of being caught grew, and the line between justified rebellion and outright criminality became perilously thin. Thus, as the cycle of thefts continued, Ava Carter plunged deeper into a pattern of behavior that threatened to unravel not only the peace of Harrow Star Lane but also the very fabric of her own conscience. Her once isolated act of defiance had transformed into an ongoing conflict, a dangerous game with stakes that neither she nor the community could ignore. Malik Thompson prided himself on his analytical precision, a quality that served him well in his role as a senior analyst for a government agency. Yet in recent weeks, a subtle pattern had emerged that disturbed him deeply. With every new delivery to his residence at 43, Harrow Star Lane, Malik noted with growing alarm that certain high-value items were mysteriously missing. At first, he assumed it was a series of unfortunate delivery errors, but as the frequency increased, his intuition grew sharper. Meticulously, Malik began to document each discrepancy. He recorded delivery times, noted the contents of each package, and compared them against the items he actually received. It didn't take long before the evidence painted a damning picture, a pattern of deliberate theft that seemed too consistent to be accidental. His suspicion naturally fell on the one person who lived just across the street, Ava Carter, the new resident at 42, Harrow Star Lane. Determined to uncover the truth, Malik devised a plan that would both confirm his suspicions and provide undeniable evidence. Drawing on his professional expertise, he set up a sting operation. Malik ordered a package that appeared identical to his regular deliveries but was, in fact, modified with hidden technology. Inside the package, along with the contents, he placed a discreet GPS tracker and a compact recording device. The plan was simple yet ingenious. If the package were to be stolen, the embedded technology would capture every detail of the heist, from the moment it left his property to its final destination. On the day the package was delivered, Malik watched intently from a discreet vantage point near his front door. Every movement was recorded in his mind: the delivery truck's arrival, the careful handling of the package by the postal worker, and then the quiet, almost furtive approach of a figure moving toward the community mailbox. As dusk settled over Harrow Star Lane, Malik's heart pounded with anticipation. His eyes narrowed when the figure's gait and demeanor unmistakably matched that of Ava Carter. He activated the tracker on his phone, and within moments, a steady stream of location updates began to appear. The data was clear and unambiguous. The package was being carried away from Malik's property and headed toward a modest home not far away. With every coordinate that flashed on his screen, Malik's suspicions crystallized into undeniable certainty: Ava had taken the package. In that charged moment, Malik recorded every detail. The GPS data, the time stamps, and even the ambient sounds captured by the hidden recorder all formed a robust chain of evidence. Malik's methodical approach ensured that nothing was left to chance. He knew that the stakes were high. Not only was his property being violated, but his sense of security and trust within the neighborhood was at risk. The sting operation, executed with clinical precision, marked a turning point. Malik's careful planning and unwavering determination had finally borne fruit. The digital footprint left by the stolen package was a silent yet powerful testament to Ava Carter's repeated misdeeds. Malik spent the following hours reviewing the data, ensuring every detail was accounted for and stored securely for future proceedings. For Malik, this was not merely a personal victory, it was a stand for justice and integrity within the community. The evidence he gathered would serve as the cornerstone for confronting the thief and restoring the order that had been so carelessly disrupted. As night deepened over Harrow Star Lane, Malik prepared to take the next step, armed with proof that would soon force the truth into the open. With the sting operation complete, Malik Thompson now held in his hands an incontrovertible record of the theft that had plagued him. The hidden GPS tracker and recording device had done their job perfectly, leaving behind a trail of digital evidence that could not be ignored. On a quiet evening, as the suburban streets of Harrow Star Lane lay bathed in soft twilight, Malik sat in his study, intently reviewing the data that now painted a damning picture of the events. Every detail of the package's journey was meticulously documented on his screen. The tracker's coordinates revealed that, shortly after the package's delivery, it was lifted from his doorstep and carried away by a figure whose movements were unmistakably furtive. As the device relayed location after location, it became evident that the package was headed to a modest home at 42, Harrow Star Lane, the very address of Ava Carter. Malik's heart pounded as the final coordinates confirmed what he had long suspected: the theft was deliberate and systematic. Malik saved and printed the time-stamped records, creating a dossier of undeniable proof. He noted the exact times the package was removed, the precise route it followed, and even the duration between each recorded coordinate. Alongside the digital data, the hidden recording device had captured ambient sounds and snippets of conversation that hinted at the thief's hurried actions once inside the premises. Every piece of evidence fit together like a puzzle, leaving no room for alternative explanations. The realization that Ava Carter had been systematically stealing his deliveries was a bitter pill to swallow. Each stolen item, the noise-canceling headphones, the designer accessories, was not merely a material loss but a violation of the trust he had once placed in the peaceful order of his neighborhood. Malik's sense of violation was compounded by the meticulous nature of the crime. It was not an impulsive act but a calculated pattern that had been unfolding over weeks. Determined to confront this breach of integrity, Malik compiled the evidence into a comprehensive report. He arranged the data chronologically, ensuring that every time stamp, every recorded coordinate, and every fragment of audio was clearly presented. This dossier, he believed, would not only prove the theft beyond doubt but also serve as a deterrent to any future violations of community trust. As Malik reviewed the dossier one final time, a mix of vindication and sorrow filled him. Vindication, because his methodical approach had finally exposed the truth; sorrow, because the betrayal stung deeply, an assault on the peaceful life he had built on Harrow Star Lane. The thorough documentation of the thefts underscored the gravity of the situation and left no doubt that his neighbor's actions were deliberate. With the evidence now secure, Malik felt a renewed sense of resolve. The next step was inevitable, a confrontation with Ava Carter to hold her accountable for her actions. The tracker had not only confirmed his suspicions but had also provided him with the moral high ground. Armed with this wealth of proof, Malik was prepared to step forward and restore the order and dignity that had been so callously disrupted. As the evening deepened into night, Malik printed the final copies of his evidence and secured them in a folder destined for presentation to local authorities and the HOA. His calm determination was palpable. This was not merely about retrieving stolen property but about reaffirming the values of honesty and respect within his community. Armed with an unassailable dossier of evidence, Malik Thompson knew the time had come to confront the culprit directly. His resolve was steeled by weeks of meticulous investigation and the mounting toll of repeated thefts. Determined to restore the order of Harrow Star Lane and reclaim the dignity of his home, Malik arranged a face-to-face meeting with Ava Carter. Choosing a quiet corner near the community park as the setting for this confrontation, Malik sought to ensure that the encounter would be as transparent as possible. A few neighbors gathered discreetly, their presence underscoring the community's shared interest in resolving the matter. When Ava arrived, her expression was guarded and defensive, a stark contrast to Malik's calm, methodical demeanor. Without preamble, Malik began laying out the evidence. He calmly explained that over the past several weeks, he had documented a series of thefts targeting his deliveries. With a measured tone, he produced the printed tracker data, time-stamped photographs, and audio recordings that together formed a damning record of Ava's actions. Each piece of evidence was presented clearly, leaving little room for doubt. Ava's face paled as she listened. At first, she attempted to deflect the accusations with vague denials, but Malik's clear and precise presentation left no room for ambiguity. He recounted the events in detail, how the specially prepared package had been taken shortly after delivery, how the GPS coordinates confirmed its movement toward 42, Harrow Star Lane, and how the recording device captured the sounds of hurried footsteps and whispered conversations inside her home. Every detail reinforced Malik's claim that this was not a series of accidental losses, but a deliberate and repeated act of theft. As Malik's voice grew steadier, the tension in the air thickened. Neighbors watched silently as he described the financial and emotional impact of the thefts, the loss of valuable items that were more than just material possessions, but symbols of trust and security in their community. Malik's words were measured and resolute. He made it clear that the thefts had not only caused him a tangible loss but had also eroded the sense of safety he had once taken for granted. In a final, pointed moment, Malik asked Ava to produce one of the stolen items. A small, seemingly insignificant object that had come to symbolize the repeated violations, a bird feeder that had once adorned his porch. The request hung in the air, heavy with implication. Ava hesitated, her eyes darting nervously as the evidence stacked against her loomed large. The confrontation had reached its peak, and her attempts to minimize or deny the theft now faltered under the weight of undeniable proof. For Malik, this moment was not about personal retribution, it was about restoring the order and integrity of Harrow Star Lane. He spoke not with anger but with a measured determination that resonated with everyone present. His intention was clear: to hold Ava accountable and to reaffirm the values of honesty and respect that the community depended on. As the meeting drew to a close, it was evident that the confrontation had shattered any pretense of denial. Ava's defenses had crumbled under the scrutiny of Malik's carefully compiled evidence. The atmosphere was heavy with the realization that this was a turning point, a decisive moment when truth had triumphed over deceit. Neighbors left the scene with a renewed sense of solidarity, and Malik's quiet dignity shone through even as he expressed disappointment that such measures had been necessary. In a desperate bid to reverse the narrative, Ava Carter resorted to a final, drastic measure. Reeling from the confrontation and unable to accept the overwhelming evidence against her, Ava decided to flip the script by calling 911. Late one tense evening, with her emotions running high and her voice trembling, she dialed the emergency number and made a series of frantic accusations. On the other end of the line, Ava claimed that Malik Thompson had threatened her. And she even went so far as to allege that he was trying to steal from her. In a bid to evoke sympathy, she mentioned Malik's race, attempting to cast herself as the victim of racial injustice. Her voice, though forceful at first, soon began to falter under the weight of her own contradictions. It was a desperate attempt to distract from her own wrongdoing by painting Malik as the aggressor. The false call sent shockwaves through the community. Sirens soon wailed in the distance, and within minutes, police cruisers arrived on Harrow Star Lane. Neighbors peered from behind curtains, their expressions a mix of concern and disbelief, as the flashing lights illuminated the once peaceful street. Malik, who had been quietly awaiting the outcome of the confrontation, felt a cold mix of vindication and sorrow at the unfolding spectacle. Inside a patrol car, officers began their investigation. Their training enabled them to quickly detect discrepancies between Ava's frantic report and the steady, well-documented facts that Malik had provided. When interviewed, Malik calmly recounted the detailed evidence, presenting the tracker data, photographs, and logs that unequivocally tied the thefts to Ava. In stark contrast, Ava's statements were marked by nervous inconsistencies and a noticeable effort to shift blame onto Malik. As the officers pressed further, Ava's carefully constructed narrative began to crumble. The attempt to portray Malik as a threat, complete with unfounded claims about his intentions and inappropriate references to his race, was exposed as a desperate fabrication. The evidence Malik had gathered not only contradicted her story but also painted a picture of systematic, calculated theft. It was clear that her 911 call was nothing more than a last-ditch effort to avoid accountability. The police report, bolstered by Malik's comprehensive documentation, rendered Ava's claims utterly implausible. Officers noted her erratic behavior during the call and the stark contrast between her version of events and the hard data on record. In a final interview, Ava's voice wavered as she struggled to justify her actions, but her defenses were fatally undermined by the irrefutable evidence. For Malik, the escalation represented a turning point. The false emergency call was not just a misguided attempt at self-preservation, it was a deliberate act of deceit that underscored Ava's unwillingness to face the truth. The incident served as a stark reminder that manipulation of the system would not go unchallenged. Malik's steadfast commitment to collecting evidence and his calm confrontation had already set the stage for justice. By the time the police concluded their investigation, it was evident to everyone present that Ava's false accusations were part of a pattern of deception. The officers prepared to file charges not only for the thefts but also for the misuse of emergency services. The escalation had, paradoxically, confirmed what Malik had suspected all along, that integrity and truth would ultimately prevail over deceit and desperation. The incident left an indelible mark on Harrow Star Lane, with residents discussing it in hushed tones for days to come. Malik's dignified handling of the situation and Ava's desperate bid to invert the narrative underscored the high stakes involved in maintaining trust and respect within the community. In the end, the false 911 call did nothing to obscure the truth, it only highlighted the lengths to which one would go to avoid facing the consequences of their actions. In the aftermath of the explosive false 911 call, the police swiftly stepped in to restore order on Harrow Star Lane. Officers arrived at the scene, their presence immediately drawing the attention of the neighborhood. Within the controlled environment of the police station, both Malik Thompson and Ava Carter were brought in for questioning, and the full weight of the evidence began to come to light. During the investigation, the officers carefully reviewed Malik's dossier, an impressive compilation of GPS data, time-stamped photographs, and meticulous records of every missing package. This robust evidence left little room for ambiguity and clearly pointed to a deliberate pattern of theft perpetrated by Ava. In contrast, Ava's frantic and inconsistent account of the events quickly unraveled under scrutiny. As the officers interviewed both parties, it became unmistakably clear that Ava's narrative was a desperate fabrication. Her claims of being threatened by Malik, and her attempt to leverage racial bias to deflect blame, were exposed as baseless. The documented evidence presented by Malik painted an entirely different picture. One of calculated thefts, repeated over several weeks, that had violated not only his personal property rights but also the sense of security that had once defined the community. The police report, now bolstered by indisputable evidence, detailed every aspect of the case. Ava was informed that her actions, both the thefts and the subsequent false report, constituted serious offenses. The thorough investigation left no doubt that she had deliberately manipulated the system in an attempt to avoid accountability. In a final debriefing, the officers explained to both parties the consequences of the events. Ava, now visibly deflated and unable to maintain her earlier bravado, was taken into custody for further charges. Malik, though relieved to see the truth validated, remained somber. He understood that the incident was not just about recovering stolen items, it was about preserving the integrity of a community that valued trust and mutual respect. As the police led Ava away, neighbors watched in silent approval from behind their windows. The intervention had not only resolved the immediate crisis but had also sent a strong message that such breaches of trust and misuse of emergency services would be met with firm, decisive action. The truth, as Malik had long maintained, had emerged victorious over deceit. For Malik Thompson, the events of that day reaffirmed his commitment to upholding justice, even in the face of blatant hostility. And for the community of Harrow Star Lane, the police intervention marked the beginning of a healing process, a step toward restoring the peace and order that had been so severely disrupted. In the days that followed the dramatic intervention on Harrow Star Lane, the neighborhood buzzed with a mix of relief, outrage, and introspection. News of Ava Carter's arrest spread quickly, and the community began to process the implications of what had occurred. Malik Thompson, once the quiet victim of repeated thefts, emerged as a figure of integrity and resilience, his reputation bolstered by his unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth. Residents gathered at local cafes and community centers, discussing the incident with a sense of cautious optimism. Many expressed relief that the pattern of thefts had finally been disrupted and that a clear message had been sent: dishonesty and manipulation would not be tolerated. Malik's detailed documentation and the police's decisive actions became a focal point for conversations about trust, accountability, and the importance of standing up for one's rights. For some, the incident served as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even in a seemingly peaceful suburban environment, hidden conflicts and personal vendettas could erupt into public spectacles. Neighbors began to reflect on their own experiences, sharing stories of minor grievances and the value of addressing issues before they escalated. The events on Harrow Star Lane had ignited a broader dialogue about the need for vigilance and the role of community solidarity in preserving mutual respect. The local HOA, long regarded as the guardian of neighborhood standards, took swift action in the wake of the incident. New policies were introduced aimed at preventing false police reports and ensuring that all residents would be held accountable for their actions. These measures were seen as a necessary step toward restoring faith in the systems that govern community life. For Malik, the aftermath was a bittersweet victory. While he was gratified by the community's support and the exposure of Ava's deceit, he also recognized the lasting impact of the betrayal. The emotional toll of the repeated thefts and the ensuing drama had shaken the foundations of trust on Harrow Star Lane. Yet, as neighbors rallied around him and shared their own commitments to justice, Malik found hope in the renewed spirit of unity that began to emerge. In the quiet moments of reflection that followed, Malik contemplated the deeper lessons of the ordeal. He understood that while the resolution of this incident did not erase the pain of betrayal, it did reinforce the idea that truth and accountability could serve as powerful catalysts for positive change. The community's collective response, bolstered by revised HOA policies, promised a future where respect and transparency would be prioritized over deceit. Thus, in the wake of the turmoil, Harrow Star Lane began to heal. Malik Thompson, now a symbol of quiet strength and perseverance, looked forward to rebuilding not only his sense of security but also the community's trust. And as the days passed, the incident became a part of the neighborhood's shared history. A reminder that even in the face of betrayal, unity and truth would ultimately prevail. As the dust settled on the tumultuous events that had rocked Harrow Star Lane, Malik Thompson found himself at the dawn of a new chapter. The arrest of Ava Carter for her repeated thefts and the false 911 call had not only restored justice but had also sparked a significant transformation within the community. For Malik, this ordeal was a personal journey, a transition from quiet suffering to proactive advocacy for integrity and accountability. In the weeks that followed, Malik took time to reflect on the lessons that the incident had taught him. He realized that the challenges he had faced were symptomatic of broader societal issues of envy, the abuse of power, and the corrosive effects of unchecked prejudice. Yet, amidst the pain and betrayal, there emerged a renewed sense of purpose. Malik began to view his experience as a call to action, one that compelled him to stand up not only for his own rights but for the well-being of every resident on Harrow Star Lane. At community meetings and local gatherings, Malik shared his story with quiet candor. His measured account of the thefts, the sting operation, and the subsequent police intervention resonated deeply with his neighbors. Many expressed gratitude for his unwavering commitment to the truth, and the local HOA, inspired by his example, introduced new policies to protect residents from similar abuses in the future. For Malik, the incident had also sparked a personal transformation. No longer content to remain a passive victim, he embraced the role of an advocate for justice. He began to engage more actively with community leaders, offering his insights on how to foster a neighborhood built on mutual respect and accountability. The experience, though painful, had galvanized him into action. A transformation that promised to bring about lasting change. As he looked to the future, Malik felt a profound sense of hope. The unity displayed by his neighbors in the aftermath of the crisis was a powerful reminder that even in the face of adversity, communities could come together to uphold the values they cherished. He resolved to continue monitoring and supporting initiatives that promoted transparency and fairness, ensuring that Harrow Star Lane would remain a place where every resident's dignity was respected. In the quiet moments before the evening settled, as Malik gazed over the familiar streets of his neighborhood, he felt a renewed connection to the community he had fought so hard to protect. The challenges of the past had left scars, but they had also laid the foundation for a stronger, more resilient future. With the support of his neighbors and the reforms championed by the HOA, Malik stepped forward with calm determination, ready to embrace a new chapter defined by unity, accountability, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Thus, a new era began on Harrow Star Lane, a chapter where truth prevailed over deceit and where every act of courage contributed to a brighter, more inclusive future for all.